forewarned in these demonstrations that I'm going to be doing later, it's not going to be anything that has any actual song magic to it, because that would be, you know, that would be irresponsible. Anyone and everyone can see this on the internet, and anyone of ill intent can come along and get some ideas. So I can't do an actual song. Even the flute, you know, I'm not going to be playing an actual song. It's just going to be random notes, just enough for you to understand, okay, this is what this sounds like, this is what this sounds like. That's what this video is for you to know what they look like, what they sound like, and how they differ from modern day instruments, and in some cases, how you can make a modern day instrument, how you can turn that into a sacred pagan instrument. So pagan instruments differ a lot, not only in the sound, but they differ in a lot of times just the way that they look, the way they're made. I will say that certain instruments have a much more stark contrast to modern day than others. So take the flute, for example. That has been, not talking about those band instruments, I'm not talking about those. But penny whistles, shepherd's flutes, those kinds of ocarinas, those have not really changed much for thousands and thousands of years. Yes, some of it, you know, maybe a bit the mouthpieces, you know, sometimes are different. The overall keys and scales might be different, but you can still find relatively the same instrument. I mean, it's eerie just how similar some of them are. This flute is a good example, even though it's not in the shape or the form of a branch, even though it's you know, it's been sanded down and everything. I want you to take a good look at this mouthpiece, because it's one of the oldest mouthpieces I know of existence. The way that that is made is I mean, that was thousands and thousands of years ago that they still made it like that. And it's not the only type of mouthpiece that's got an ancient lineage, but that is one of the oldest ones that I know of. And yet this was not made, you know, any kind of special pagan made in it. I did draw on it right there, but it's not, you know, it wasn't made by anyone other than just a musician that makes flutes, a modern day folk musician. And that is eerily similar to the way they used to look. I mean, at least as far as the mouthpiece goes, maybe not the entire body of the flute, because it has been sanded down and everything, but I mean, that is really, really eerily I mean, that is exactly how to make it flat like that, and the piece goes inside this outer rim. I mean, that's exactly. And then you've got others that may look exceptionally modern but sound, you know, old age, just because of the key they're in or the scale they're in. So, you know, that is easier to substitute than something like a drum, because there's really no real good substitute other than an indigenous made, some style of an indigenous pagan style drum. There really isn't. If you're trying to get a modern day drum, it's going to sound like a completely different instrument. I mean, that's how different. The sound's not the same, the way it's made is not the same. And then you go into the fact that, you know, a lot of the drum magic has to be, I won't say has to, but I'll say a lot of people do pull from it being made of real rawhide. You know, just like, for example, my flutes, they're all made of real wood, because I think that energy is just adds to the magic and that totemic value versus PVC or, you know, industrial fake something that they're made of nowadays, or that they tend to be made of. And then you have rattles and warhorns that really aren't even widely used anymore in modern day at all. There's like not really a modern day version of it, because they're so ancient that just wanted to reiterate before I start showing you this stuff, everything was either legally farmed and or hunted, and all is legally obtained. I didn't farm it, I didn't hunt it, but you know, it went through the legal process. There's nothing in this is endangered or anything like that. So this is a fox skull, and it's a pebble rattle, and so all pebble rattles are going to sound a little different, but this is what this one sounds like. So and it's got a goat horn handle on it. Some people have the handle, some people just have the skull and nothing else. The rattles can be made out of all sorts of things: hollow wood, horns, skulls, rawhide, you name it. It's almost endless possibility. There's even certain tree like pods that you can make. It's got seeds in the pod and you can make rattles out of that. Unfortunately there's none where I live, but if there was, I might actually make a rattle out of that, because it's basically already a rattle. A lot of people will string several together and then put it on a handle. But anyway, moving on. So that's the rattle, good for, again, groundedness and cleansing. Then we've got Warhorn. This one is domestic goat. That other one I think was domestic goat and humanely hunted fox. This is domestic goat. Actually, it lived on a ranch, and this was a really old, beaten up horn that they were selling, but just by itself. And they literally, at this ranch, I guess they salvage every little thing, because you know, and you can see that it's got a lot of really neat, I think very neat imperfections that makes it unique. Just started actually not too long ago making these. They're really super easy to, even easier to make than the rattle. Unfortunately though, they're a lot more difficult to learn to play than they are to make, and I won't say that they're like difficult or anything, but a lot of times since I'm so new to actually making my own and just playing it even, and since because I don't usually actually do this, get this out and play it for just anything, typically, you know, I'd have sacred permission just to be able to show you this and give you an example. A lot of my horns I won't even be able to take out at all, because it really use them for, you only take them out when you use them for like protection and healing, and it really, these are good for protection and war magic. That's hence the name Warhorn. And so really, if I'm not doing that, I don't get much practice, you know, with it. Otherwise, I don't just sit there and play it for no reason, is what I'm trying to say. But as I get better at this, you know, I expect that, you know, I won't have as many times where I initially so it depends on how you play it. It gets all different sounds out of it, and again, I'm just learning it, so please give me a break. This is a new instrument that I recently added, and I honestly should have meddled in that a long time ago, because I just love them. So start out with your cheapest, most basic thing. This is good for practice. It was about as cheap as they come, honestly. Like, you could not get any cheaper than this. It was really cheap. This didn't come with it, obviously. I added these sacred knots onto it. This is obviously like a, even though it's handmade, it was probably mass produced. It's not in key. It's out of tune, and that's why it's so cheap. But it will teach you to learn. Something like this will teach you to learn, and it's made of solid wood, so it's got that wood, that tree totemic wood energy. Actually very strong. I don't know if you can sense just by, some people can't, some people can, but it's got a nice strong wood energy there. This is just goat suede, domestic goat suede. And I'll play it just so you can hear that this is not a, I mean, it's meant to be, you know, a modern day instrument, but like I said, flutes are actually one of those things that haven't changed much. So it's out of tune, but so that's kind of what that sounds like. And it's you know, it doesn't matter that it's cheap and not properly tuned. I still use it for magic. It's this wonderful inner. So next we have a forest flute. This was basically pagan made. I mean, I think he's more influenced to Norse than pagan, but I mean, you know, this is, what is this? G sharp, and it's made of just a raw tree branch. It's just a fallen branch, what you call fallen branch flute. So yeah, that's got a nice soft, airy sound to it. It's not like any modern day flute I've ever heard. I will say that a lot of these minor keys, I find that for the specific kind of stuff that I'm using, tend to work better than anything minor. But that being said, I still have a few that are in major keys. It really just depends on the energy you're looking for. This is a cattle horn, domestic cattle Jim's horn flute. So it's made out of a real domestic cattle horn. And let's see what this one sounds like. That one's almost got like an eerie, majestic, mystery-like sound to it, I think. And really, this does not change much at all. It's got a little bit more sophisticated, perhaps, in the way that we've made them over the years. But as far as a Jim's horn goes, that's pretty, I think, pretty standard. You know, this was probably, again, it was made by a musician. He probably did a lot of folk music that was at least inspired by this kind of more ancient style instruments. So all these different instruments, you know, it just depends on which ones that you're being called to work with the most. And so while it's a lot of people use drum on an everyday basis, I actually don't use my drum very often because that's not one of the ones I'm feeling called to work with that often. However, when I will say this, on the rare occasion I do actually do something with it, I desperately, really need it. There's no, unfortunately, there's no alternative, really. There's nothing to replace it, and so I have to have it, even though I don't use it often. When I need it, I really need it. It's a protection and war drum, and they all look different, but that is the gist of this. It can either be pagan or it can be any kind of indigenous made, Native American, even African. There's all different kinds, but basically that's the kind of sort of drums I'm talking about. And they do sound very different, but unfortunately when it's in the real world and in this room, you can feel it, you can hear it a lot better than you can on the phone, but I'm going to try anyway. So that is what it sounds like. Again, no magic, just telling you what it sounds like.